Hi guys, welcome to our first in a series of videos on the Revolutionary War, and today we're going to talk about what happens actually before the war, the kind of what we call the pre-revolutionary times. It's when America is still part of the English colonies, and it's before the actual fighting of the Revolutionary War. It's what lays the groundwork actually for the revolution to happen, and we're going to talk about how the colonists both gain confidence in themselves. And they also start to see that the British are not invincible, and they start to gain a kind of their first national celebrity in George Washington. And so for your notes today, you need to include the use your Cornell note template and have in there titled as Pre-Revolution Part 1. This is a part of Objective 1.2, so if you haven't done 1.1, you need to make sure you go back and look at that again. And so today we're going to talk about kind of what are some of the issues that happen? And so one thing is that the colonists really begin to test the boundaries. As British colonists really expand westward, frontiers begin to infringe on Native American territory and really challenge their claims to land. And this is going to cause a lot of problems down the line, as you'll see. At this time, French colonists really depend on the rivers that provide access to the sea and French markets. And so they built forts along the rivers to guard against the English, their traditionally hated rivals. And although some Jesuits, people who were priests who aimed to convert native people to Catholicism, were many of the fur traders there. The British traders actually had the same idea, and they built the settlement of Pickawillany, is how you say it, in present-day Ohio in 1748. The French responded by attacking Pickawillany, and the British captured the French settlement of Louisbourg in Canada. France built more forts, such as Fort Duquesne in Pennsylvania, and you actually see the picture here where Pickawillany is. It's kind of over near more modern-day Dayton / greater Cincinnati area. Seeing that full-on fighting was coming, the British and the French searched for Native American allies. Perhaps because the French were fewer in numbers, traded with European goods, and didn't encroach on native people's lands, the French had a much better relationship with the Native Americans. They had allies in the Algonquin and Huron tribes, as well as others. The British actually got help from the Iroquois League. The Native Americans' main objective was to protect trade and their own land. So they joined whichever side really seemed to be the least harmful for them. Now, all this fighting is going to cause a little tension in the colonies, and so the British colonies, the colonists there really start to sense a little fear, and so they actually send representatives to Albany, New York in 1754 to discuss defense. In June of that year, Benjamin Franklin presented what was known as the Albany Plan of Union, or sometimes you'll see it just referred to as the Albany Plan. It was the first formal attempt to kind of unite the colonies. Before, they had been kind of individual colonies throughout this British Empire. The plan was to join to raise money, to train a militia or an army of amateur soldiers who were put together in times of need, and organize the government. But what's funny is actually not a single local legislature was willing to give up its own power. So the colonies continued fighting on their own and often losing with little unity actually together. Now, from all of this, you get your first kind of American celebrity, your first American hero. In 1753, a young surveyor was sent by the Virginia governor to find French settlers in the Ohio Valley, the Ohio River Valley, actually, and convince them to leave. His name was George Washington, and he was 21 years old. The French refused, so in 1754, the governor made Washington an officer of the colonial militia and sent him back with troops. Washington attacked a French scouting party, which the French claimed were on a diplomatic mission. So the French then also claimed that among the 10 people that were killed was a French diplomat. Afterwards, Washington built a small fort called Fort Necessity. I know, real original name there, near Fort Duquesne, where he was wanting to launch an attack. Even though he had little experience and few men, Washington attacked Fort Duquesne. He was again defeated, but the attack was the beginning of a war, and Washington's bravery made him a national hero. And when he returns back to Great Britain, to Virginia, he's well regarded as such, and it really begins to call up this national army to fight against the French and Native Americans. All right, so the big question time. Why is this important? Well, if we're talking about the Albany Plan is the first time it really unites the colonies together, or at least the first attempt. Remember, the colonies don't go along with it, but at least they're getting the ball rolling. It's the first time that a representative from every colony had actually even been together in the same room. And so this is really important because it's going to lay the groundwork for the Continental Congress, which we'll talk about a little later, when they first start, the colonies try to get together again and unite. It also is important because you suddenly now have a national hero in a guy by the name of George Washington. Look, he's beaten twice. But his bravery and him surviving these fights make him into a celebrity within the colonies. And this is going to, again, set the groundwork for when the revolution happens, you need somebody to lead these men, somebody experienced, somebody who is a loyal colonist, i.e. George Washington. And so this is going to be incredibly important for those two reasons. This is why we learn this. And so that's it. You need to have all of this in your notes. Finish your left side column with pulling out any important dates or important people or VFL terms that you think might be on there. Also, make sure you write a summary at the end. That kind of goes along a little with question time, but that, you can use that as kind of a base. This is part 1. There is part 2, so if you're doing this all today in class, or if you're doing this at home, make sure you watch part 1 and then part 2 so that you understand the French and Indian War side of that. We'll talk about that in the next video. But for today, this is all you need. And then remember, this gets us set up for the French and Indian War, which is really going to be the colonists' first attempt, their first kind of practice at fighting a war. Until next time, I will see you later. Have a great rest of your day. If you have any questions, please make sure you ask me in class during one of our huddle time activities. Talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.